Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again. Now it's time for episode 197 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be reviewing the latest album from an Edinburgh-based hip-hop trio that really does take hip-hop and genres like that and really kind of turns them on their head a little bit with a very unique and with a very unique and urgent sound that's kind of set them apart from other indie rap artists that you may hear. Of course, I'm talking about the UK trio known as Young Fathers, and I'm here to review their latest album, which dropped this year on March 9th, 2018, on Ninja Tune Records. So this is their first album on a real label. And the album is called Cocoa Sugar. And as you can see, I do own this on vinyl. I actually got this at Soundgarden, the Soundgarden in Baltimore, on Easter Sunday, actually, while I was there. And so far, this is the only hip-hop record that I've heard this year, but it's definitely already becoming one of my favorites of the year, too. And anyway, here's the album cover, which I love this album cover. It's one of my favorite album covers of the year, actually. And then there's the back, which there's 12 songs on this album, and it clocks in at over 36 minutes, so pretty short record, but definitely in its short runtime, definitely has plenty of attention to detail to it that definitely is really good to hear. The liner notes are at the bottom, and this is the insert, which includes the lyrics, which I like how for the lyric insert on this album, instead of just listing a few words, they actually list all the parts that are sung by every vocal part on this album, which I think is pretty cool. Because I will sort of praise the layering of vocals here as I go on in this review. Here's side A, and then there's side B. And this is on a really cool blue vinyl, which is pretty awesome because I love colored vinyls, and any chance I get to have one, I'm like, bring it on. And that's the vinyl packaging for Cocoa Sugar, the latest album from Young Fathers. And I believe this is their third album, but I'm not so sure. Now, what I love most about this album is how it is definitely strange and weird enough that it will appeal to someone who doesn't just want something poppy and straightforward and want something that has a little more character to it, and is a little more unique amongst others who just try to copy and try to mine the past for inspiration. These guys definitely create the music of the future, pretty much, especially when it comes to hip-hop, gospel, electronic, and even punk music. But it is definitely accessible and streamlined enough that it will appeal, I think, to the normal music listener as well, who, wants the music to be unique, but also to have sort of accessibility and have a good hook to it. And I think all the songs on here do a good job of sort of achieving that catchy hook that we all like to hear in our music, even if the music isn't like stuff you're going to hear on the radio or anything like that. The opening track, See How, definitely right off the bat shows some of these characteristics pretty well. It opens up with these kind of sudden electronic dings, which is put over a kind of sparse beat, as well as a kind of soulful vocal performance. And the lyrics on this track do sort of tackle the challenges of growing up and how sometimes you feel a bit remorseful you because you wish you could have lived a life that was like more or less normal because you feel overcritical and your life seems just so typical. Cool, and I love the kind of soulful double-tracked vocals that come in towards the end of the track as the synths kind of build up into a little climax, which is a lot to do considering the song is only like just a couple of minutes and it's over. Then the following track, Fee Fi, definitely is one of the stranger tracks on here in terms of the production. It samples like these tribal drums as well as some melancholy piano. And this is the song where like the whole hip hop rapping thing truly comes in. And I love all the weird vocal effects that are going on this track, including in the second verse where the vocals are kind of freaky and pitch shifted and almost woman-like, but they do sound really cool and surreal on there. Real and sort of shows that this band, or at least the two vocalists for this band, are like sort of portraying different characters throughout this album. And I do love the third verse where they really do bring an urgency and they have kind of the baffling ability to rap a bunch of little words and phrases at once in just over 30 seconds and still manage to make it sound amazing at the end. And I love and of course, a very catchy hook on the song. It's right there for you, it's right there for you. That just gets stuck in your head. And then next we have the lead single, In My View, which definitely makes really good sense as the lead single here because it really does show what's definitely so rewarding about this album, including the production, which is kind of lo-fi with all the weird samples and pulls and stuff like that, but still has plenty of nuance and it still sounds very well produced. And they almost kind of sample like orchestral music a little bit on this song. Like I think I hear like some horns and some chime samples and stuff like that on here to go over the kind of scuzzy beat on the track. And also I love all the different like clever poeticisms incorporated into the track. I mean, I don't remember the last time that I heard foie gras referenced in song lyrics. So genius right there. Just right there. And also really killer hook on the track that has plenty of soul to it and memorability that I'm like hanging on to every word that he's saying. And also really cool rapped verse, a really cool rapped second verse on the track too, which definitely has a sense of urgency and kind of subtle like viscera to it that definitely kind of draws you in and sort of commands you to listen. And then the song Turn, and then we have the song Turn, which really does show off the band's British swagger pretty well. Well, I love the different vocal samples that are incorporated on here. Like we have this kind of hooky sample at the beginning, which sounds like vocals that are kind of some vocals that are like kind of fuzzed out and then and then pitched up a couple of semitones to make it sound very kind of very kind of surreal and cool. And then we get into the first verse, And then we get into the first verse of the song, which where the vocals sound like they're being put through like some sort of tiny little microphone or something like that, And yeah, but I love all the different like sort of off the wall phrases that he incorporates into the track. Like the first line of money buys you isolation, give the Pied Piper a raise, sold my shortcomings for a price of the Bureau of Change, champagne socialite, blue-eyed soul, too big a fight to fight. Right, and then it eventually goes into the incredible hook on this track. Which definitely has has a lot of intricate layers to the beat. The beat and stuff like that. It's definitely a really nice hooky track here on the album. And another song that once again features some really cool samples on here. So like the sampling going on here on this album is definitely very well done. Then following that, we have the first single from the record, the futuristic gospel of the track "Lord," which opens up with some very beautiful piano, as well as some kind of layered vocals, which definitely do remind me of a gospel choir, but with only like two voices. Two voices sort of calling out to the Lord, sort of like, don't pay me no mind. And sort of saying, if you choose the time, I'll hear the chimes. But then it's really the second verse where we really do get to the point here, point where he sort of tells the Lord that he won't really see him later, and how if he fades, like he'll fade as well. And they sort of fade together. But I do really like what he says on the second verse, which definitely has plenty of blunt truth to it. With the first couple of lines, love wants to give, hate wants the thrills, joy hates the pain we all need, to feel. It just sounds like this really beautiful poem, and I feel this is one of the most interesting moments of the song, considering that the piano and soulful vocals are eventually eventually deluged with detuned synths and tuned synths, as well as some tribal beats. Beats as well, and it has an awesome build-up, which features some kind of fuzzy little electronic swells in there, and also where the beat kind of builds up and has this kind of chugging rhythm to it. Then it has a pretty satisfying closing line. When the government wants to control, her culture will set you free. Then the next song, Tremolo, one of the quieter tracks on the album, but still definitely has plenty of character to it. I love the kind of sad organ that occurs in the bridge of the song. The song has a meaning that I don't quite understand just yet. But I definitely do see it has kind of a sense of it does have kind of a spiritual message going on, so it kind of makes sense that this track was put right next to the track Lord. The Tremolo My Soul mantra, I think, is sort of portrayed very beautifully via the vocals, which have kind of tremolo effect on it, which would usually be used for a guitar, but using it on a voice gives it this really cool vibrato, which I do really like. Um, which I do really like on there. So it's definitely one of the more sparse tracks in terms of the production, but definitely has still plenty of attention to detail to it. But by far the most intense track on the record is the song that opens up side B, the song Wow, which is a little less about the lyrics and more about like the cascading, like kind of sort of infinite layers of vocals here on the track. And I love all the samples that are incorporated on here. This is the one where I think the band tackles punk more than any other genre on here, with the kind of fuzzy synths as well as the kind of optimistic, sort of joyous piano playing on the track. And there's all kinds of really interesting vocal things going on here on this track. There's the kind of shouted "wow" on here, along with wow, as well as some pretty satisfying sort of lines of "what a time to be alive. I'm gonna put myself first. Everything is so amazing." Sort of talking about how he can't believe he's living in a world that's sort of sort of got a lot of issues going on with society and stuff like that. And I also do love the pitch-shifted, woman-like vocals that occur, like in the second verse as well. Sort of portraying a character, which is the same thing they do on Fee-Fi, but in this Fee-Fi, but like definitely has. But I love how kind of sensual and like listenable that those vocal effects sound here on this track. And then we have the third verse where we have some very passionate vocals on here, along with doo-wop vocals that come in towards the end of the track. It's definitely a perfect storm if you look at all the vocals. If you look at all the vocal parts going on this track. Definitely one of the reasons why I really love this album is, nobody is that I haven't heard too many other lo-fi, like, hip-hop acts, like, layer vocals as well as this band does. Well, then the song Border Girl, which definitely incorporates some sounds together that you never would think would work, but they do manage to work, including looped beatboxing, and I mean it does feature like looped beatboxing and and some very catchy, groovy, nuanced synth stuff like that. But then it also features almost like a kind of sad pipe organ, which comes in on the kind of somber bridge. And all kinds of and once again the layers of vocals on this track really do work really well, like on the hook, the I, which just sounds very soulful and hooky, and the first verse of the song is kind of shows kind of a sense of apathy that the character in the song has for like this border girl. And I love the hook on here, and I love the chorus on this track, which goes, border girl, give it up all you're living. You don't have to take all you're giving. Then, but he does leave it kind of vague, sort of the border girl that he's referring to here on this track, which especially is kind of apparent in the kind of stripped back bridge. But this song definitely is one of the highlights of this album. Because of the way the vocals kind of stack up. Like you'll hear different lyrics on one voice, and you'll hear on another. Then we have the song "Holy Ghost," which is another song that really nicely shows the band's kind of British swagger on here. I mean, this is definitely one of the most like British sounding songs on the album. I mean, even the beat has some pretty interesting character that does complement the kind of off the wall phrases really well. Really well. Like, I especially like some of the lines that they use in the second verse. With lines of, I saw myself self-assault and premonition. I saw myself smelling salts in the Pacific. I'm so prolific, I done and did it. That's poeticism right there. And also, really great hook on the track. Wake up from the bed, call me Jesus Christ, is definitely going to get stuck in your head after you listen to this track. And then after this, we have kind of a short interlude for the album, Wire, which this track definitely took its time to grow on me, but the intensity of this track sure does make it a pretty banging interlude for this track, and it definitely just sounds like a great idea that's just been looped a few times. Which I do really like. I mean, there's still plenty of attention to detail to the beat, and also it does feature those really cool pitch-shifted vocal effects. Which again sound kind of freaky, but at the same time also kind of like sensual and very like beautifully listenable as well. And then after this we have the song Toy, which is like, I think like the third single that was dropped for this album, and let me tell you, it is a banger. Like, I mean, the beat on here is incredible, and this is the song that I think shows the truest sense of anger on here, with the singer, like, with the front man literally shouting into the microphone, but then sort of calming down his performance a little bit for the incredible hook on the track. And let me tell you, this song has like one of the catchiest, most well-produced beats on the record. It's on the record. It definitely has a sense of like anger and intensity to it, but it also definitely has a good sort of definitely sounds melodic enough that it definitely is instantly going to stick with you. And right off the bat, the front man just pulls me in as he shouts stuff like oceanic cinematic appetite for something bigger than free. You lick it and you stick it, and it's kind of like the taste of everything. Like, teen really bring in sort of a sense of urgency, which we all just really need in our lives, especially when it comes to amazing music like this. But then in the second verse, the other rapper sort of addresses kind of like his troubles with a relationship and struggling to agree on everything they discuss and stuff like that. And then the song closes with "Picking You," which is definitely very much a song about death if you listen to the lyrics. And I really like some of the lines that he says about like The only time I ever go to church is when someone's in the casket. Pretty devastating right there. Right there, as well as saying, good men are strange, the bad men are obvious. Very true. Right there. Even though I would say this is probably my least favorite track on the record. I mean, it's a good song, but just it's a little less memorable than some of the other cuts here on this album. So for whatever reason, not exactly sure why. Why? I think it has something to do with the hook doesn't really quite stick with me the way the most of the hooks on this album do, even though it definitely is still, like, not, like, a bad song. I don't think there's one clunker here on this album. It's definitely, overall, pretty consistent. It does have kind of repetitive grooves to it, which I know may irritate some people, but personally, I think, personally, I have autism, so actually the repetitive grooves actually really work for me on this album. And despite that, they still managed to come up with a new idea for just about every song here on this album, which not every, like, indie band can do. So I definitely highly recommend you give this album a listen. It definitely was a pretty good introduction to Young Fathers, and I'm definitely willing to check out some of their older work right after this album. So I'm definitely going to give Cocoa Sugar an 8 out of 10 because it's definitely, like, very futuristic. I love how well they layer everything. There's plenty of character and smart things that they say in the lyrical content, and plenty of cleverness and all around great kind of English swagger. I definitely can't say enough nice things about this album. So that's my review of Cocoa Sugar, the new album from Young Fathers. I'll see you for episode 198.